Hey, welcome. Today, we're getting right inside the head of a business. We're going to explore how a company plays two games at once, the game of surviving today and the game of winning tomorrow. It's this constant, tricky balancing act between short-run survival and long-run success.
All right, to get us started, let's make this personal. Imagine you own a car wash. Business is good, but then a new competitor opens up right down the street and you've got to slash your prices to compete. All of a sudden, you're losing money. So what's the play? Do you tough it out and stay open, or do you cut your losses and shut the doors? It's a tough, gut-wrenching call, and the smartest move might not be what you think.
And, that little car wash problem, it really gets to the core of what every single business is up against. They're fighting two different battles at the same time. You've got the short-run battle, that's the daily tactical fight to just keep the lights on, and then you have the long-run quest, the grand strategy for growth and hopefully market domination.
So let's tackle that first battle, the daily fight for survival. This is the short run, and in the short run, you're kind of stuck with what you've got. Your building, your equipment, those things are fixed. The only choice you have is how to use them, day in and day out.
So to make this super clear, let's meet our case study, the Blue Velvet Car Wash. Now, when times are good, things are humming along. They're charging $5 a wash, doing 800 cars a week. That's $4,000 in revenue. After you pay for the soap, the water, the workers, and the rent, they're clearing a nice little weekly profit of $400. Not bad at all.
But why exactly 800 cars? Why not 799 or 801? Well, it all comes down to a really core rule in economics. For a business like this, you want to keep washing cars right up to the point where the price you get, that $5, is equal to the marginal cost, which is just the cost of washing one more car. For Blue Velvet, that sweet spot is exactly 800 cars. If they tried to wash car number 801, the extra cost in water and labor would actually be more than the $5 they'd make from it. So they stop at 800.
But you know how it is in business, right? Good times don't always last. So what happens when those profits vanish and suddenly you're looking at losses? Well, the goal changes. You're not trying to maximize profit anymore, you're just trying to minimize the damage.
And boom, the price war hits. The going rate for a car wash plummets to just $3. Now, at $3 a car, Blue Velvet is guaranteed to lose money, no matter what. The question isn't about profit anymore. The real question is, should they even bother opening on Monday morning?
Okay, so the decision here actually boils down to one surprisingly simple question. You have to completely ignore your fixed costs for a moment. Think about it. That's the rent on the building, the loan on the equipment. You have to pay that whether you wash 0 cars or 1,000 cars. The only thing that matters right now is this. Does the $3 you get from one car cover the cost of the soap, water, and labor for that one car? If the answer is yes, you stay open, because any penny you make over those variable costs helps pay off a little piece of that rent you're stuck with anyway.
And this whole idea has a name. It's called the shutdown point. It's that rock-bottom price where you can't even cover your variable costs. If the price drops below that point, you're literally losing money on every single car you wash. At that point, the smartest, most rational thing to do is to temporarily close the doors, just pay your rent, and hope the prices come back up soon.
All right, so that's the day-to-day grind, the short-run survival tactics. But just surviving isn't the point of being in business, right? The real goal is to win. So now let's zoom out and talk about the long-run game, planning for massive growth. And this is a totally different way of thinking. In the long run, nothing is fixed. You're not just an operator anymore. You're an architect. You're deciding, should we build a bigger factory? Should we open a second location? Should we buy that fancy new piece of machinery? You're literally building the future of your company.
Now, one of the biggest forces shaping these long-term plans is a powerful concept called economies of scale. And the idea is actually pretty simple. It just means that for a lot of businesses, as you get bigger and produce more stuff, your average cost for each unit of that stuff goes down. Simply put, getting bigger can make you way more efficient.
And if you want to see just how crazy powerful this is, check out this example from the egg industry. You've got Little Jones Farm producing about 2,400 eggs a week. Their cost is about 7 cents an egg. Then you've got Chicken Little Incorporated, a massive automated operation churning out over 1.5 million eggs a week. Their average cost? Less than 2 cents an egg. That is a game-changing competitive advantage, driven entirely by scale.
There's a really simple analogy for this that just makes it click. Think about a bus. One bus carrying 50 people is way, way cheaper per person than having 50 different people drive 50 different cars. Why? Because you're spreading the cost of one driver, one engine, and one tank of gas across 50 customers. That's economies of scale in a nutshell.
But, and this is a really big but, bigger isn't always better. You can actually get too big. At some point, a company can become so huge and complex that communication starts to break down, bureaucracy takes over, and things just get inefficient. That's called diseconomies of scale, and it's when your average costs actually start to creep back up. Finding that perfect size is the real trick.
Okay, so we've looked at how a single firm thinks in the short run and the long run. But what happens when you've got an entire industry full of firms all making these same calculations? Well, let's zoom out one more time and see how these individual choices shape the whole market.
So let's imagine an industry, say California wine. And let's say a new study comes out showing it's incredibly healthy, and suddenly everybody wants it. Demand skyrockets, prices go through the roof, and the wineries that are already in business are making just insane profits. So what do you think happens next?
Well, what happens next is this beautiful, almost automatic chain reaction. First, those huge profits act like a giant, flashing neon sign that says, hey, easy money over here. So entrepreneurs see that sign and they rush in to start new wineries. As all these new wineries open up, the total supply of wine goes way up. And with so much more wine on the market, all those companies have to compete harder for your business, which forces prices to come back down. And eventually, those insane, excessive profits just get competed away. And this whole dance continues until the market settles into what economists call a long-run competitive equilibrium. It's basically a state of perfect balance. Prices have fallen to the point where they equal the lowest possible average cost of making the product. Firms are still making a decent, normal profit, just enough to make it worth their while to stay in business, but not enough to attract a whole new wave of competitors. It's the market working at peak efficiency.
All right, let's wrap all this up. We've seen how individual firms make these tough calls, how to survive the day-to-day, and how to plan to scale up for the future. And we've also seen how all those individual choices create these powerful forces that shape entire industries.
So when you step back, you see that a competitive market is this relentless, powerful machine. It's constantly seeking out big profits and then, through competition, grinding them down to normal. Which brings us to one last, really interesting question. If the market is so good at wiping out huge profit opportunities, why does anyone bother to innovate or start a new business in the first place?